we can do this. That's fine. I trust that it's all for a reason.
And then how do you, yeah, absolutely. And then how do you edit it? Like, how do you chop and start it and stop it, or you don't?
I will I will. I'll just chuck it into iMovie, cut the beginning and end off.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then post it.
Awesome.
Yeah. Yeah.
So clever.
So clever?
So clever.
I am.
All right, quick makeup. How's the lippy? Oh, yeah, good. Ready to roll.
Beautiful.
Love those earrings.
They're great.
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay. Oh, it's interesting doing it not live. It's funny. I've got my usual thing that I do. I'm like, oh, what do I do when I'm not live? I just pretend I'm live. That's what I do. So.
Yeah. Pretend you're live.
Excellent. Cool. Okay. So hello, Facebook land. This is Zapheria, and I am back again for the campaign for launching of Inside the Temple. You've been seeing a lot of me over the last week, and you'll be seeing a lot of me over the next few days. And I'm joined by another amazing guest who I'm very excited to introduce. So hello, Penny. Thank you so much for joining me.
G'day, Z. So happy to be here. Thanks for the invite.
Yeah, pleasure. So Penny's another example of the teachers and mentors from all around the world that I am gathering together on the one platform for Inside the Temple. And so this campaign is giving you like a taster of who all these different people are, so that you know what Inside the Temple is, or you know a little bit about what Inside the Temple is, hopefully enough to excite you to jump onto the campaign and support. We've got about another 5 days, I think it is, of the crowdfund campaign before we go into full launch. So Penny, I'm actually going to let you introduce yourself and everything that you do, because you're kind of a mixed bag of lots of amazingness.
Thank you. I've been a naturopath for about 25 years, and I'm an astrologer and a clairvoyant. So I guess my medicine is at the intersection of those three. And I've been doing readings now, online readings for anybody anywhere in the world, for example, New Zealand today, for the last 10 years. And I read for people, so just help them. I really like working out, helping someone discover their purpose, their soul purpose, where their gifts lay, what challenges they're coming up against. And a big part of that is astrology, which is what we're going to talk about today. And this year moving into more teaching astrology as well, so I can pass on these amazing gifts and just teach people how to use the stars as a roadmap, so they can themselves understand when, where and how to bring out their unique gifts to the world.
That's exciting. I didn't know you were going to start teaching. Teach me. I would like to learn from you. Okay, this is exciting. All right.
Absolutely.
Cool. So I want to know from you, why astrology? Why is astrology even something that people should be interested in?
I found astrology to be the most significant form of self-inquiry. It's such a great tool to use for self-awareness. We're gifted, every single one of us is gifted a blueprint of the position of the stars the moment that we took our first breath, the moment we were born. And when you know your time and location of your birth, that's when you can work out a natal chart. And the stars are our guides and our teachers, and they have their own personalities. They've been here for millennia, and it's one of the oldest forms of guidance, of using a compass that there is. And it's pretty complicated to start with, but it's actually really easy to use. And I reckon more and more people I would like to help more and more people have these tools and understanding, so they can just start to divine the stars for themselves. When you're able to read your own astrology chart, then you're also able to read where the current planetary setup is today. And so there's two ways you can use it. You can use it for your own guidance and to work out what your own quirks and strengths and weaknesses are. And you can also find out where the planets are right now, like right today, which will allow us to work out when Mercury is maybe retrograde, or whether Venus might be having a transit over one of our other planets. And it allows to work out the theme of the year. Yeah. And there's just so much information that we can glean, not only from our own birth chart, but again, where the stars are right now and what they're doing for the next 3, 6 months, 12 months going forward and beyond.
Awesome. Okay, this excites me because, like, I know everybody speaks about, like, Mercury in retrograde is like a thing that, like, the world speaks about. Oh my God, Mercury must be in retrograde. And then there's other people that say, oh, that's all just a load of rubbish, and it's just an excuse that spiritual people use to not do anything. And so what excites me is, like, to talk to you about, I'd love to ask you two things at the same time. I've gotten excited. One is, like, what does it mean when a planet is in retrograde? But then I want to talk to you about, like, what's happening in the planets and the stars this year.
Perfect. Too funny. Divine synchronicity. The moment that you said Mercury retrograde, we just had a little glitch, and that is classic Mercury retrograde. I mean, I also know it could be the Wi-Fi either end, but that is classic Mercury retrograde, because retrograde means just going backwards. So rather than the planet going forwards or being direct, retrograde just means that they station and then they go backwards for a period of time, for a few weeks or a few months. So that usually means that you pause on the personality of that planet. Again, Mercury being the planet of communication. So communication goes backwards. So what's the opposite of strong communication? It's backward communication. There's misunderstandings. There's confused thoughts. There's breakdowns. There's technical issues. Mercury is a planet of phones, of everything that we use to communicate, computers, the internet, all of that sort of stuff. So that's why there's a lot of phone issues. There's Telstra on speed dial issues. That's when we lose our phone, or our phones just start to freeze. There just tends to be, and you can once you're aware of it, you see it happen in miscommunications, in lost letters, in phone technical difficulties, all of that kind of stuff. So yeah, it depends on, you can see it any way that you want to see it. But when you know it's coming up, you can just decide that you're not going to sign a contract in that time, and you're certainly not going to buy a new phone or a computer.
That's okay. I'm going to take that exact tip right there as well, and actually start focusing on when it's coming up. So, beautiful. Awesome. Thank you. So then, can you, like, dive into telling us about this year? Like, what's in store for us this year?
Love to. With this year is a lot more grounding. Some are calling it the Earth. It's the new era of the new Earth. 2018 was really emotional. It was very divisive. It was very extreme for a lot of people, for nearly everybody that I know. A lot of that has to do with some of the planets, for sure, or you can help describe it using those as examples. But this year, it's much more grounded, and largely that has to do with some big, heavy outer planets that are all in an Earth element sign. So through the zodiac, there's 12 signs of the zodiac, and they're either a fire, air, earth, or a water element. And where last year was a lot more emotional, a lot more water, a lot more air, this year it's a lot more earth, like dominantly earth. And a little bit of fire, which is going to be great to add the motivation, and we need a bit of a spark of fire to keep that earth element going. But it's a much more grounded this year, so we'll be able to not only be able to rest and secure your foundation and take a bit of a break, but you realise what didn't work and what needed to be processed last year. And this year is a lot more slower about integrating the foundations for the next couple of years going forward. Yeah. Whenever I'm thinking about a year, astrology-wise, when I'm thinking about a year, most astrologers go to Jupiter to decide what the theme for the year is, because Jupiter is one of the outer planets. And when I say outer planets, there's personal planets and there's outer planets. There's 5 personal planets, and they're the sun, the moon, Venus, Mercury, and Mars, and Earth. And then there's the outer planets, which is Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto.
Mm-hmm.
Jupiter takes 12 years to get all the way around Earth, whereas our personal planets, they all take less than a year. The moon takes 28 days to move around the Earth. The Earth takes 365 days to move around the sun. Mm-hmm. Mercury and Venus move around quicker than the Earth does. But when we get to Jupiter, he takes a good 12 years to move around. So he has, and again, the circles are in there. So Jupiter has a big influence on all of those personal planets. And although he moves a lot slower, so he's a lot stronger, he's a lot bigger, so has more gravitational force, if you like. And Jupiter's just moved into his home sign, which is Sagittarius. Mm. And that's the first time that's happened for 12 years. Yeah, so it's a double whammy. It's a double helping of that vibrational energy. And the good news is every planet loves to be in their home sign. So Jupiter's going to be here for 12 months. He started in December and he moves out into Capricorn this December coming. So there's the 12 months, which is pretty much 2019. Mm-hmm. And Jupiter is about humanitarianism. Jupiter's about expansion, about good luck, about higher philosophies, travel, higher academia. It's much easier for Jupiter to be in its home sign than when it was in Scorpio, for example, last year in 2018. So it expanded. Jupiter always expands the qualities of a sign. And expanding something like Scorpio, we saw a lot of that darker transformation energy where anything that wasn't authentic in your life came up for review. It's a real deep dive. Scorpios love to dive deep. It's very sexual. It's very sensual. It's very life, death, rebirth. So most people went through some sort of life, death, rebirth last year. Jupiter, so the overall theme perhaps for 2019, being the first outer planet, it's great news because it's Sagittarius. And Sagittarius would express that with, again, group, more inclusive, definitely a party. Saggis love to party. So it's more about expressing and getting together and having big banquets and music and different locations, different nationalities. Anything that's new or global is Jupiter in Sagittarius. So that's good news for a start.
Right. Fun. I want that.
And more of that. It's a great way, if we have to have a theme, it's a way of finding your happiness within the group, or finding your happiness through partying through celebrating, rather than partying, but celebrating equality, celebrating humanitarian issues, rather than having to do that through Scorpio, which was the overall theme where we had to dive deep within and go down to the bottom of the psychic pond within ourselves. And so that was really heavy work for a lot of people. But wasn't it?
Yeah.
Everybody. So Ali just recovering now.
Yeah.
But perhaps the larger underground theme for 2019 is this groundedness, and a lot of it has to do with Saturn being in Capricorn. And a lot of it has to do with Capricorn. It is all about Capricorn this year because there's three major planets in this sky. Saturn and Pluto, which are two of the biggest outer planets that you can get, they're both in Capricorn. They meet up for the first time in 35 years, 40 years at the end of the year, but they're getting closer and closer, so we can feel them already because they have outer planets have an effect on the trends or the generations even, rather than the personal planets having more of a daily influence or your mood sort of thing. So Saturn moving into Capricorn stands for structure. It stands for old school paradigms. It stands for corporations, for governments. It's the father of the zodiac. Cancer is the mother. It's the father. So it is definitely all about patriarchal and the patriarchy issues. Right. So it's pretty significant. Capricorn actually went into Saturn. It stays in that sign for 3 years because it's an outer planet. It stays for a long time. It doesn't just move in a month. It stays for 3 years. It started this time last year. So last year was again a great to look back on and see where we had a lot of the patriarchal old school systems starting to crumble. there was a lot of kickback from that, and not all of it got through, but that's where our movements like Me Too or Black Lives Matter, transgender rights, women's equality, all of that got stirred up in the last 12 months, and that is classic Saturn in Capricorn, Saturn in Capricorn.
Wow.
So, yeah. So where it sort of started to dismantle last year, because you're in the middle part of a 3-year trip of Saturn in Capricorn, this year we'll expect to see, you know, the stuff that just is really outdated, hopefully that starts to topple more and more. You'll see anything that you've built yourself, any foundations that you've started, if you've cut any corners or if the foundation isn't right, you'll have to go back and do it again, because Saturn is the Time Lord. It's the discipline. It likes things to be done slowly but properly. So it's not a get rich quick. It's the marathoner. It's not the sprinter. And having Pluto and Saturn in Capricorn all this year, which is a huge theme of 2019 astrology, the main theme it goes around is Capricorn qualities, which is patriarchal, father figure, corporation, old school traditional structures.
Wow.
And if they're outdated, which they are,
yeah,
that's you know, it's time to dismantle that, because the world needs to be available. It needs to work for more than just the privileged few, just for, you know, the good old boys or, you know, the boys club. And so, you know, but we've still got a little bit of a way to go, because, you know, we've still got our Brett Kavanaugh's still got back into power, but we're seeing these movements more and more, and that's only going to get bigger and bigger. And also there's 3 eclipses in Capricorn. So if there's ever a time to interrupt or cause chaos for an old thing, it's for an eclipse. So that's also super good news for getting rid of the old and just being more inclusive for everybody.
Right. Well, that's exciting.
It's a great time to be alive.
Yeah, totally. Oh my goodness. Okay. That feels so good. It's so interesting. Only this morning I was speaking to one of the girls here about, like, you know, the schooling system, and it's outdated, and it's time. I feel like something's going to really start to shift soon. So it's kind of fascinating that fits in really with what you're sharing here. So that kind of stuff excites me, and is basically showing me a reason why I would want to follow astrology, is like to have like a little bit of an idea on these things that are happening throughout the world that we see shifting, because obviously that impacts us personally, right? Even if it is the outer kind of, you know, affecting everything, it then affects us ultimately. So
absolutely. And schools are part of institution, parts of corporations, absolutely, a little bit outdated for sure. And yeah, they affect the generation. The outer planets affect the collective. It affects the whole of Earth, and we're all on Earth. Those personal planets can affect us a little bit more individually, but when we're talking about these outer planets, they affect the generation, the collective, right here, right now. Absolutely. And one other planet also that is in its home sign this year, and has been for a couple of years, but there's 3 planets in their home sign this year, which is, again, really rare. Pisces is in Neptune. Neptune is in Pisces. That started at 2012. That stays Neptune stays in a sign for 12 years. It's in its home sign of Pisces for the first time in 80 years. We're halfway through that, but we can see that come through because that's been like that for 7 years now, and that's been the rise in meditation, in crystals, in astrology, in the mystic. So Neptune is very mystic. Pisces is very, it's exploring worlds that are unseen perhaps. And the downside of that is also illusion, self-deception. A lot more addiction has come to the fore, as well as people are looking outside of themselves instead of looking within. So victim mentality, all of that is also classic Neptune in Pisces.
Right.
So that's also a background player. And if you choose not to attend to your Saturn in Capricorn issues, you can default back to you could sort of play each or both themes that you'll find people are either more Neptune in Pisces energy, or they're more Saturn in Capricorn energy, which is a get in and get it done, and or a combination of both.
Right. Okay, so then that also explains why, like, there is much more of what I'm seeing is kind of in the collective at the moment is the victim piece is kind of quite alive right now. Okay.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Hey, that's cool. It's making a lot of sense.
Yeah, I think there's two reasons for that. One is people waking up to, even movements like the Me Too movement, people are waking up to where they have been abused. They have been in situations where they did feel their rights, they didn't have their rights, they were overpowered. And, you know, so a lot of women have just woken up to that they've actually been under that oppressiveness for the last couple of years. So they're in grief or they're in anger. And then there's another side of people that just choose to stay in victimhood anyway, because it is a way of getting your needs met, where you don't need to do anything, you don't need to take responsibility. But at some stage, you know, you can't look outside of yourself for any self-actualization. It's all got to come from within. So there's a space that people need to be able to grieve. But at some stage, you've got to go in, because everything else really is an illusion or a construct of your inner world anyway. But that's perhaps another topic.
Yeah, but an awesome topic to dive into with you. And like there's a million different topics that anyway, that's what's going to happen when the platform finally launches. So we've got lots of time to dive into all different pieces. I wanted to ask you one other piece about like when there's an eclipse, what does that mean? Like what's actually happening and how does that impact us?
So an eclipse is when it happens 3 or 4 times over the year, and it's when the moon either passes between the sun and the earth. So there's a partial eclipse of the light onto earth, which gives it or it's when the earth passes through or passes through the moon and the sun.
Right.
So for a couple of hours, they're in an exact alignment. So even though they're spinning all the time around each other, a couple of times a year, they all line up. And so that is a real portal, if you like, from energy to be exchanged back and forth. And so one's a solar, one's a moon. It's solar if the sun is partially eclipsed, and it's a lunar eclipse if the moon is partially eclipsed. And it's just a massive amount of energy. It's a porthole. It's a massive amount of energy. So people either get super activated or super exhausted, because it's just an influx of energy. And so it's known as a change, or, you know, the end of the start of particular cycles. They usually follow 6 months. They go on a full moon and a new moon. So there's always 2 together. There's always one on a full moon and one on a new moon. That's the solar and the lunar. And then in 6 months' time, they repeat on the opposite side of the earth to match up again. So there's a theme that will go for 6 months that starts or ends, as well as a theme that just ended from that last 6 months as well. So they happen in twos, on the full moon and on the new moon. And we've just had 2. We've just had that last month.
Yeah. Yeah, I noticed. And we have like an eclipse on a full moon, and it was a blood moon and something else all at the same time. It was kind of a bit of a doozy, a wolf moon or something they called it.
Well, an eclipse always has to happen on a full moon anyway, or a new moon. And the blood is just the light that's given onto planet Earth anyway. Depending on where you are and where it is in the sky, sometimes you see it at different parts of the world, depending again on what constellation that it's going on in. But the red is just the colour of the hue on the Earth or on the moon. And I think the wolf's is something to do with January being the first. It might be there's some ancient tribe that named the moons as well with animals, and there's always an animal that hooks up with the month anyway, you know. So they all overlap, superimpose themselves on each other. So but we felt it. It was a really big one.
Yep. Felt it here at Hayden, I can tell you that much. Living in a temple, and it's like everything here is heightened. So yeah.
So we've got 2.
Okay. Sorry.
It depends on also where it is. The last one was in Leo, so it depends on how much Leo you've got in your chart as well. And it was the last one of 3 eclipses in Leo, so it was the end of a cycle of the Leo Aquarius eclipse, which worked out, you know, it asked us about our leadership in the group, which is Leo, and the group being Aquarius. But the one before that in January, the very first week of the year, started in Capricorn, and there's another one in Capricorn in July, and there's another one in December, which again makes for that earth-dominated energy this year.
Wow. Okay. This is fascinating. I mean, the fact that it was in Leo, my Venus is in Leo. So, and what I'm doing currently here at Hayden Temple is stepping into a leadership role of trying to renovate and restore the entire temple. So no wonder this last eclipse, I was like, what the hell? So, okay, that's cool. I learned something. Okay.
Uh-huh. Yep.
Awesome.
Love it.
I have another
Such
question.
a queen.
Yeah, totally. I have another question for you, and it's a question that I ask all my guests, and I haven't pre-warned you, so this will be interesting. I'm going to catch you off guard. So, like, to me, right, astrology really fits in with the temples. It is part of the temples. Like, if you look back in history to when the original temples were here, that's how they lived their life, right? That's how they could tell time. That's how they did everything. So, and then now I see us in the time of the temple's landing again is the best words that I can use for it. I feel the temple is already here, but it's just that we are becoming more aware of it. We are starting to live within the temple. And so I wonder, what does the temple mean to you, if anything?
Oh, that's a great question. Funnily enough, I just got on my screen, somebody just sent me a photo of how random is this, if I can get it without wasting too much time, of their new baby. There it is. Of their new baby with a little wizard's hat on, like that just randomly came through when you were saying the word temple. So the wizard and the witch are alive and well.
Yeah.
And the temple, to me, that would be that inner space, that inner throne that we need to guide. I like to try to guide myself to go and sit in and get myself to that point where it is that stillness point, that point of spirit that is so sacred, that holds all the keys, all the codes for not only our own journey, but our contribution to the overall journey as well. And it's a place of reverence. We've got to, we need to, one of our only jobs, I feel, is to honour and be responsible for that inner temple within ourselves and water it and feed it and nurture it what it needs, as well as patrol its boundaries, you know, really fucking efficiently at times to, you know, put yourself in environments that allow it to expand or grow and be okay when it's not a fit, and keep walking till your temple finds, you know, the grid for the loop, the space where it grows and expands and can contribute.
Beautiful. Yeah. So I can feel it's so interesting. I was kind of bringing that through as my last question. I'm getting this tap on the shoulder of like something else that I'm supposed to ask you. So I'm going to honor this tap and I'm going to ask you for someone. So I'm very lightly going to touch on kind of the psychic clairvoyant aspect. And I'm wondering, for someone who's wanting to activate those abilities in themselves more, what would be a simple tip or tool that you would give them to start to remember, I guess, or to access their own psychic or clairvoyant abilities?
Great question. For a start, I think there's I think everybody has the ability to be psychic. But your psychicness starts with intuition, and there's a slightly different energy, I think, to intuition and psychicness, clairvoyance. Intuition comes through the body. So as we get to know ourselves and are connected by mind, body and soul into our physical bodies, our physical vehicles for this lifetime, there's a woman's and a man's intuition, but there's an intuition where you have that gut instinct where you just know, and we know because our body starts to tell us so. When we get that refined and you're really crystal clear on your own inner signals and symbols and what they feel like and how they come to you, whether that's through sound or through sight or through knowing, there's different shades to all of that, or different gifts through any of the senses. Then you can deliberately hold your vibration and deliberately take your vibration up. So we go up, if perhaps from a template from 1 to 10, intuition is when you can hold yourself maybe at 5 at love, where you can be neutral, really neutral, not too triggered, can hold and can understand where there's energy fields. From there, you can deliberately move your vibration up to 6, 7, 8. And as we deliberately, which takes a hell of a lot of focus, really it's one thing that you need as a psychic is just to be able to hold focus, and hold focus in the vibration of love, and hold it then for somebody else, like being so neutral to be able to want to be open to their holding all of the attention over a bubble of love over them, if you like. Mm-hmm. The moment that we start to go up, spirit comes down. So spirit wants to communicate to us, because this is how we manifest stuff. You know, we are their vehicles to manifest, the vibration to get higher and higher, move from 3D to 5D. So they need us. So they are all for people getting into the vibration where you can get yourself to that level, and then they'll come down. They meet you there, and then that's when they start talking. That's when they're very clear. They talk to you. A lot of mediums see that there's mediums that can actually hear directly from loved ones that have departed, or any spirit that's departed. So all spirits that aren't in a physical body have just departed. So they're still in an energetic being. They just don't have their physical vehicle with them. So that's probably a long way of explaining, but that's so if you want to develop your clairvoyant skills, you've got to be at one with your body. So you've got to treat her like the temple that she is. You've got to feed her water, give her high vibration food. You've got to meditate. You've got to be able to understand the difference between your mind and your soul. And that requires stilling the mind and all of that kind of stuff. And then after that's done, then you go up higher and higher. And that's just, working with different, there's lots of different ways to do that as well. But they'll meet you. Spirit will always meet you halfway.
Beautiful, thank you. And I can definitely attest to the part about treating the body as a temple. It's like I've just come off a 27-day juice fast, and all of my all of my abilities, whatever you want to call them, they've upped so much. It's quite fascinating. So it's the first time I've really, really tried that and done it with that intention of wanting to raise my vibration and to be living in a temple space. So anyone who's watching that and kind of thinks, whatever about the temple and high vibration food, it really, really works.
Absolutely. The more density that we let go of, the more detoxing of the 3D stuff, the higher that we go vibrationally, the more light that this body can hold. So if we're weighed down by dense stuff like our toxicities, whether they're emotions or whether they're physical stuff, the heavier that we are, the harder it is to obviously move up higher. So you want your body to be able to hold more and more light. And the way to do that is to, have higher vibration foods, conversations, people, sex, water, rest, all of it. It's got to be in that higher, it doesn't have to be, but if you want to keep actualizing your soul's potential, that's the road to do it.
Yeah. Beautiful. Oh, thank you so much. I've even learned a lot out of this. Like that just excites me. I'm like, I want to learn from you. I'm excited that you're going to be teaching or doing more teaching. So that's really exciting. Is that something that you're already in the process of launching? Is that something that people can start to follow you on if we put a link in the comments?
Yes. Thank you. I'm creating and it's just how to learn astrology, how to read the stars for yourself at the moment. I'm probably, I think I'm about 6 or 8 weeks away from getting all the tech start, right? The content's written, but the tech start is my learning. So I'm learning rapidly and getting some assistance there. But yeah, I'll put the link to my site perhaps, or my Facebook page. And if anyone wants to come through for a reading, and that's the best place to get on my email list, so I can let you know when the astrology course is ready to launch.
Fantastic. Yeah. Okay, that's great. And then I think on your site as well, there's a link if people want to book in for sessions with you. Is that correct?
Yes. Thank you.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
It's all there.
Great. All right. Fantastic. So check out links in the comments for all the goodness, and follow Penny. I've had a number of sessions with her and just absolutely loved them. So I highly recommend following her and getting sessions, and I will definitely be doing that course when it's out. So I think you should as well. And so if you've been watching this and you enjoyed this and you enjoy this type of experience of having different teachers and mentors from all around the world on one platform sharing their juice, and so inside the temple, I'm asking for people to support the crowdfunding campaign. And the reason I am is I actually want to launch this properly. This is like, I'm creating a temple space, and the temple space deserves to be launched and cared for in a particular way. And beyond being like a podcast, it will have that attached to it as well. But beyond that, it's the ability to really dive in deep with so many of these, leaders from around the world, getting the content that usually they would only share if you come and do a workshop or a course or a retreat or, whatever, because they can't give away everything, obviously, on a free podcast. So this is something different. It's not been done especially not for this industry before. So if this excites you, please check out the link for the crowdfunding as well. And I would just be so excited for anyone who wanted to financially contribute. And if you're not in a position to financially contribute, like even just a tiny bit, if that just isn't where you're at right now, maybe you can share this and share it with other people who maybe are in a position to support in a different manner than what you are in this moment. So all the support I'm deeply grateful for. And Penny, thank you so much again for your time. I'm really grateful, and I love you. I think you're wonderful. Oh.
Pleasure, sister. Mwah.
Yay. Mwah. Thank you, everyone.
Anytime I get to jam with you, I love.
Yeah, so much fun. Awesome. Ah. Cool, honey. I'll press